Good morning students, welcome back to physics class. Today we are going to continue the chapter 5, that is laws of motion. Okay, so the previous class we were discussed about what is a force. So what is a force? Force may be defined as an agency, that is a push or pull which changes or tends to change the state of rest or of uniform motion or the direction of motion of a body. In simple word, what is force? Force is a push or pull. Okay. Which are the effects produced by force? Force can change speed of an object. Then force can change the direction of motion of an object. And last one is the force can change shape of an object. Okay. So the first topic is Aristotle fallacy. So Aristotle, the Greek scientist, held the view that an external force is required to keep a body in uniform motion. So Aristotelian law of motion is what? An external force is required to keep a body in motion. Okay. So here he considered only one side of motion and failed to explain the other side. Okay. If body is in motion, then how does it come to rest? There came the concepts of the opposing external force of friction. So actually Aristotle felt that means this statement is wrong. Okay. So in practice a force is required to counter the opposing force of friction. For example, a toy car is at rest when a body pulls the handle attached to the cart when the cart comes into motion. And when boy releases the handle, then cart comes at rest. Now according to Aristotle, cart came to rest because there is no external force applied on it. Okay, but actually it is wrong. The cart comes at rest due to frictional force of the surface which appears the motion of cart. Okay, so this is the Aristotelian law of motion. The next one is Galileo's experiments on motion of objects. Okay, so Galileo studied motion of objects on an inclined plane. Okay, so here see, this is the first picture. Here the objects moving down an inclined plane. So here what happens, motion is increases. That means it accelerates more. Okay, speed increases. While those in the second case, that is here the body or object moving up. So here the motion is retarded. That means its speed is decreases. Okay. Then the third case, motion on a horizontal plane is an intermediate situation. Okay. So here Galileo concluded that an object moving on a frictionless horizontal plane must neither have acceleration nor retardation. That is, it should move with constant velocity. So Galileo introduced the conceptual law of inertia. If the net external force is zero, if there is no force acting on it, that means if the net external force is zero, a body at rest continues to remain at rest and a body in motion continues to move with a uniform velocity. Okay. This property of the body is called inertia. We call it as inertia. And also it means resistance to change. Okay. A body does not change its state of rest or uniform motion unless an external force compels it to change that state. Okay. This is the law of inertia. Questions for you. While traveling in a train or any other vehicles, have you noticed how you continue to move forward when it stops? And also another question, when a vehicle stops, you tend to jerk forward before coming to a complete stop. So the same way, you will jerk backward when the vehicle begins to move. So all these three questions, the answer is due to inertia. Okay. So inertia can be classified into three types. That is inertia of rest. So inertia is what? It is a means resistance to change. Then the word inertia was first used by Galileo. Okay. Then there are three types of inertia. First one is inertia of rest. The second one is inertia of motion. And last one is inertia of direction. Okay. So the first one is inertia of rest. So what do you mean by inertia of rest? The tendency of a body to remain in its position of rest is called inertia of rest. So what is inertia of rest? The inherent property of a body by virtue of which it can't change its state of rest is called inertia of rest. Okay, for example, a person standing in a bus falls backward when the bus suddenly starts moving forward. Okay, so in this case, when the bus moves, the lower part of his body begins to move along with the bus, while the upper part of his body continue to remain at rest due to inertia. That is why a person falls backward when the bus starts. Okay, so this is the inertia of rest. The next one is inertia of motion. So the tendency of a body to remain in a state of motion in a straight line is called inertia of motion. That means the inherent property of a body by virtue of which it can't change direction of motion is called inertia of motion. Okay, for example, the fan continues to rotate for some time even after it is switched off. Okay, then another example is a person stepping out of a moving bus has to run forward a few steps is also due to inertia of motion. Okay. Then the last one is inertia of direction. Okay, so the inability of a body to change by itself is direction of motion is called inertia of direction. So what do you mean by inertia of direction? The inherent property of a body by virtue of which it can't change direction of motion is called inertia of direction. Okay, for example, when a bus or a car takes a sharp turn, a person sitting in the bus experiences or car experiences a force acting away from the center of the curved path due to his tendency to move in the original direction. Okay, so he has to hold on to a support to prevent himself from away from the turning bus. Okay.